We're very lucky tonight. We have a key member of one of the most powerful oversight committees in Congress, Republican Chris Stewart of Utah. He sits on the House Intel Committee. It's good to have you, Congressman.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
So these questions about the inaugural committee, you guys never looked at this, about who made the donations, were they in the right names, were they from foreign nations, what were they doing? Why not? And do you have any concerns about these questions?
Well, the reason we didn't on the House Intel Committee is because it wouldn't have been under our jurisdiction. Of course, we were focusing on Russia and foreign influence, et cetera. And look, Chris, I just think you're going to have a little bit like the flavor of the day. There's going to be the investigation of the week over the next few years. I think you said there were 17 investigations. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with 30 or 40 different investigations. And as they move forward, I think the fair thing to do is, and surely we've learned this from the last 2 years, is okay, if there's accusations and if they're credible, then let the investigation go forward and let's see what it shows. But to be fair to a lot of people who have been accused of some very serious crimes, including even the crime of treason over the last 2 years, many times these investigations don't show and prove what many people think, and some of them actually hope that they will.
Fair point. You have to look if it's reasonable. There should be scrutiny if it wasn't reasonable. And if anything comes out of it that deserves attention, we should know. And the discussion should go from there. Understood. Let me ask you a little bit about what did come out of your committee. I'm reading it in a different way now that we've learned more in this indictment about Roger Stone in comparing the two. I have some language I wanted to go over with you. Just from the outset, that you were a big fan of getting that report out, and it was criticized as being just something that allowed the president to say, there's no collusion, look at the Nunes report. Do you have the same level of confidence now that you did when this report came out, that we've seen nothing that speaks to coordination or collusion by those around the president with people they shouldn't have been dealing with?
Well, yeah, when you say the report, you mean the Nunes memo. Is that true? Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Nunes memo, and anyone can look at it, and I would encourage everyone to go read it. It's 2.5 pages long. And it's very, very clear, and there's not a word in that. There's not a sentence in that I don't stand by, and there's frankly nothing in that has had any doubt cast upon it.
You don't believe that there's any proof of any coordination or collusion by those around the president with people who had involvement with Russian interference?
Well, absolutely not. And by the way, you know who else has come to that conclusion, at least so far as we can tell? Mr. Mueller. Because in none of his indictments does he indicate any U.S. person has been involved with collusion or conspiracy with the Russians in the campaign.
I would disagree. Conspiracy, you got me. But I think that's my point about this report. You're looking at crimes, and I understand why, but that's not the full mandate of the special counsel, as you know. In fact, the first item delineated by Rosenstein was to look for proof of contact and coordination with those who may have been involved with Russian interference. Collusion, and I do not mean to speak out of school with you, Congressman. You got a better mind than I'll ever have on my best day. But collusion, just for the audience, is not a crime unless we're talking securities law. It's a behavior. Manafort and Stone, just to use the two most recent examples, they were trying to coordinate. They were trying to collude with people who they thought may be involved with Russian interference. Isn't that a fair read?
Chris, I don't know how you can come to that conclusion at all. There is no indication of that at all in these indictments with Roger Stone. He's indicted for 7 things. 5 counts of lying to my committee, which, by the way, I take very seriously. And all of this breaks down if we can't presume that you can hold a hearing or that you can have a court hearing without people lying to you. So that I'm sincere when I say I take that very seriously.
But you didn't know he was lying to you at the time?
Well, no, of course not. We couldn't have known that.
Really?
That's something that comes out after you're able to provide evidence.
But if you had just subpoenaed the records, some of them which were publicly available, you would know that Roger Stone was telling 2 different stories. Which one is true is up for you guys to figure out.
No, well, and over a period of time, you can figure that out. But when he's in there for hour after hour after hour, and you don't have contrary evidence before you, which in this case we didn't know that. Now, it took a little time to put that together, but I want to go back to the original point, Chris, because I think this is so important. Because you're saying that there's evidence of collusion here. Once again, he's indicted for 5 counts.
Not the crime, not the conspiracy, not a crime. Collusion is a behavior. It's not a crime. I'm not saying there's criminal conduct.
Okay, whether you define it as behavior or as a crime, I don't care. I don't think there's evidence of either one.
Well, you know he was talking to Guccifer. You know who they say Guccifer is, right?
Well,
We
wait,
have the
let me-
direct messages from Stone. You could have had them the same way if you were as curious as we are. You know about Credico and Corsi. You didn't call them. And again, you weren't running the committee. I'm not hanging this on you, Chris. To be honest, you are willing to come on and answer hard questions. And I always tell my audience, you deserve a pat on the back for that. And I know you weren't calling the shots. But I'm saying you didn't call Credico or Corsi, the committee, not you, not Nunes. And you could have. If you were curious about this, you would have found the same things that are evident in the indictment.
I absolutely reject your kind of assumption that I wasn't curious or that we weren't curious about that. Of course we were. We called hundreds of witnesses. We had 330,000 plus pages of documents provided to us. But look, Chris, you could name dozens of people on this that we didn't call. It's because at the time we had no reason to call them because there was no indication that there was collusion or that there was other nefarious activity taking place. And I want to come back to, I want to make this point because I've been trying to for a little bit now.
Please.
That is Roger Stone, 5 counts of lying to our committee, 5 counts of witness tampering, or 1 count of witness tampering, 1 count of impeding the investigation, Nothing from Mr. Mueller that indicates anything of collusion or working with Russians.
I don't understand that interpretation. And again, Chris, you know where I'm coming from on this, Congressman Stewart. I'm not accusing you of hiding or anything like that. I just want it to be open. If you read this indictment, plain text, okay, just not looking at it with any level of sophistication, the special counsel is clearly making the case that Stone was trying to coordinate with people he thought had the goods on Hillary Clinton, ill-gotten goods, from WikiLeaks, from Guccifer, from whoever. That's coordination with people involved with Russian interference. He believes from his own indictment that he was talking to Guccifer and others. That's a sign of coordination, that he was directed by a senior official to find more of those things if he could. The special counsel believes there's reason to believe that's true. That would be coordination, not crimes, except if you lie about it, which he did. I'm just saying it seems that your report was much more generous than the special counsel was.
Well, a couple things. The Nunes report doesn't deal with this at all. The Nunes report deals with something actually far more important, and that is the reason for the FISA application and some of the deficiencies with the FBI and Department of Justice in their application process. It doesn't mention Oliver Stone at all, or Roger Stone. It has nothing to do with that.
Sounds like an Oliver Stone, though, movie. We both agree about that. Go ahead, continue, Congressman.
Well, one other point, and if you want to open this up to behavior and not actual conspiracy or criminal activity, then Chris, to be fair, you have to talk about some of the things that the Clinton campaign did as well, which is, as we know, working with foreign agents who then worked with Russian agents to gather dirt on their opponent. I mean,
There's a difference between working intel sources and having an inimical government come to you and say they can help you.
He was not an intel source. He's a private citizen. He hadn't been in Russia in years. He was not an intel source.
But that's why they used him at GPS, was because he was a former intel guy who said he had the ability to talk to people on the Russia side about what they may know.
He made all sorts of claims, but to call him an intel source is just factually inaccurate. He wasn't an intel source at all. He was a private citizen who hated Mr. Trump, admitted he viscerally didn't want him to be elected, and then used Russian agents to collect this information. If you're going to open this up to behavior, then let's look at behavior on both sides.
Well, you have to, because if you're going to look at the President of the United States for impeachment, we can say this standard, high crimes and misdemeanors, all we want. We both know it's not a legal standard.
Yeah.
It's about abuse of office and what makes you guys upset enough to vote against them. That's why I'm laying it out, and I know I can depend on you to answer and to give a full-throated answer for the audience, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you for doing so.
Thank you, sir.
You are always welcome here. Congressman Stewart from Utah.